Next job on the list, get this seat mounted. Now, what you can see here is that the bottom of the seat sits up from the mounting point. I've measured it from there to the bottom here at 38 millimeters, and that's equally at the front there and the back. What I'm going to do is make up these little spaces here with a bolt on the end. I'm going to plug weld it there and there, and then I'm going to weld the base onto a 3mm flat bar frame, which will be riveted in to the bottom of the seat. So if you haven't worked it out already, this linisher is probably the most useful and important tool in this whole workshop. I was just taking the coating off these guys here so I can weld it properly. So here we have the finished seat support. All I've got to do is cut these bolts off to the right length. Put nylock nuts on there when it's all done. It just goes in there like that. Seat goes on top. I'll mark it underneath, and then I'll put a series of rivets through here to hold the seat onto the support. So I've made up this plate, again using a cardboard template. It goes right in there. The seat bracket goes in through there. Battery will sit there. Now my little clips I've made up will sit here and here. All this plate work is now completed. I've made up this plate here, shaped it to go in there like that. A couple of small bolts here. The seat mount at the front holds that in place. I'll get some of this foam with the sticky backing and put it in here. Put a nice big square in there. Battery will sit on that. I'll get some shock cord, some thinner stuff than this, and that just, I'll make a loop and that just holds the battery in place like that. I've used this system on another bike of mine. It's brilliant, it works really well. Keeps the battery isolated from vibration, holds it in place really well. Here's the seat mount. I've trimmed the bolts, I've drilled the holes for the rivets. I won't attach this to the seat until I get all this stuff powder coated. So that goes in there like that. Nylock nuts underneath. Let me show you what I've done with this rear end. I've made a bracket. It mounts up underneath like that. I've got these little LED indicators just on the end. I've got a tail light, a number plate light actually, in there. I'll probably put another one in there, have two. But all those wires will come up in, I'll put them in shrink wrap, and then they come up through a hole I've drilled here. What I've ended up with here is a very nice amount of space under here, and there's even more space around the battery for any electrical equipment I might want to put in there, which on this bike could come in quite handy. These early BMW R100s had a lot of electrical equipment in the headlight. There's the fuses, the relays and a bunch of other stuff. Now if I want to change that headlight, and I am thinking about going with a half fairing for this bike, still undecided, but particularly if I do that, I'll have to move all that stuff out of there, and this is the obvious place for it. The later model R100s are a little bit easier in that respect, because they moved all the electrics in the headlight down along the spine of the frame here. It meant they had to cut out the bottom of the tank a bit to fit it in. Cost them 2 litres of fuel capacity, but there is an advantage there if you want to customise a post 1984 Beamer. That number plate in Western Australia, you can get the smaller ones. Like I've got on 2 of my bikes, they're a bit shorter. That would certainly look a lot nicer, but I'm going to go with this for now. Can be easily shortened if need be. Oh, and what I received in the mail today was this Brembo rear master cylinder. Got that from Bevel Heaven in California. They seem to be the cheapest provider of this I've found. Anyway, it's the exact same one I used on my Moto Guzzi Cafe Racer. It works really well. It's actually got BMW on it. For some reason, must be a OEM BMW. It's a 13mm piston. On the Guzzi I've got it mounted like this. I may go for that orientation, we'll see. I've got these very nice Terozzi rear sets, which I'm going to put about there. I've actually milled these down, this web I've milled down a bit to make it a bit finer and not so clunky. It's still hugely strong, but it looks a lot nicer, a bit finer. Yeah, so that's coming up very soon on the Caffeinated Racer Workshop.